One of my favorite scenes from the Deadpool movie is when he talks to the audience. He has a flashback and his past self continues talking to us. When this happens, Deadpool mentions that he's breaking the fourth wall within a fourth wall. Something
That
he calls
16 walls?
And I really like this scene because it takes this device that we've seen so many times where a character talks to the audience, something we know as breaking the fourth wall, a step further. When we talk about breaking the fourth wall, the first thing we think of is fictional characters who speak directly to the audience, from Zach Morris and Malcolm in the Middle to Ferris Bueller or Deadpool. But even though this use of breaking the fourth wall is the most common, there are much more creative ways to use this concept. How about seeing Deadpool dressed up as Ferris Bueller? Here we are talking about a character who breaks the fourth wall, referring to another character who also does it, which is not only funny but gives us this feeling of having several layers of reality. It's as if the work made us part of it and we felt in a certain way that we are accomplices in this joke. In fact, there is even another concept called the fifth wall that Deadpool also breaks in this video. I'm going to explain what that fifth wall is. But we are also going to talk about the real use and value of the fourth wall concept, since we have very creative uses in movies, series, comics, and even in a very interesting painting. Welcome to Go, the Geek Monitor, bite-sized doses of geek culture to nourish the mind. Today we will explain the concept of the fourth and fifth wall. Although breaking the fourth wall may feel like a modern term or something related to cinema and television, the reality is that this concept originates from 18th century theater, places where there were three physical side walls, and the fourth wall referred to this imaginary line that exists between the stage and the audience. This doesn't mean the fourth wall wasn't broken before. I'm just saying the term was invented in this century. In fact, from ancient Greek theater, we can find examples where actors spoke to the audience through monologues or soliloquies. But be very careful with this. Currently, many people think that the fourth wall only serves to be broken, but its function is much more important. In theater, the fourth wall is very useful because this imaginary line allows the actors and actresses on stage to ignore the audience and enter into a type of stage avatar state that actor Konstantin Stanislavski called public solitude, in which a performer is able to ignore the audience and focus exclusively on the performance, in the dramatic world that he is presenting in the play, acting as if he were alone despite there being many people watching him. Have you ever thought you were alone and then found out someone was watching you and you were embarrassed to have been seen? This happens because we all act differently when we are alone. It's a part of us that we usually don't let be seen. On the other hand, this fourth wall helps the audience achieve suspension of disbelief, which is this unconscious pact we have with fictional works through which we can accept that there are fantastic worlds that have their own rules. This imaginary line then helps us perceive the presented facts as if they were truths, even though they are fictional stories. So the fourth wall does have a use for both actors and actresses as well as the audience. But now let's see what is gained by breaking the fourth wall. The act of breaking the fourth wall falls into the realm of meta-references, which is when a work refers to itself or is aware of itself. But what exactly do I mean by this? We're talking about Deadpool being aware that there is more than one actor who plays Professor X, or talking about why only Colossus appears in his film as if there were budget issues. We also see it in this scene from the Muppets where they decide it would be better to travel by map, and it's very common to see it in all these scenes with Malcolm-like characters where the goal is to create a closeness between the character and the viewer through the breaking of this wall. However, we can also see it in much more creative ways, like in the video game Marvel vs. Capcom 3, where Deadpool uses one of the bars that supposedly only the players see to hit his opponent. We also see it in a panel of the Joker turning the comic page or She-Hulk traveling between panels. A very good example where the breaking of the fourth wall and meta-references are played with can be found in the Truman Show movie, where the protagonist, Truman, doesn't know that his life and the elements within it, from his emotional relationships to the places and the weather, are a simulation created for a television show. However, there are moments where this illusion breaks, like the scene where one of the lights falls, which plays with the question, did a light from Truman's fictitious life set fall? Or did a light from the movie we're watching about the Truman Show fall? The film presents multiple layers of reality, making it clear that things are not as they seem. We can also see this at the end of the film, when Truman says goodbye. Is he saying goodbye to the fictional viewers or to us? Another similar case we can see in the series The Office, where Jim often looks at the camera, but we also don't know if he's addressing the fictional viewers of his universe or he's talking to us. In the comics, a very interesting use of breaking the fourth wall can be found in the Pax Americana issue of the Multiversity arc written by Grant Morrison, where a character named Captain Atom, who is an alternate version of Dr. Manhattan, is leafing through a comic in which he himself appears, but that's not all. In these panels, Captain Atom talks to us about how comic characters live stories in 2 dimensions without realizing they do, and he warns us that just as we can intimately know these fictional characters and their deepest thoughts through the text balloons, he is also able to read us. In fact, he stares at us while saying your overdue titles and your future continuities. I know your origins, the secret identities you hide from your loved ones. I can read your text balloons. I know what you're planning. This comic makes us part of the universe through some very ingenious panels where the writer wants to present the idea that comics and our world are simply different but equally valid existential planes. And here it should be clarified then that this breaking of the fourth wall is not something exclusive to the performing arts, such as theater or cinema, but it also takes place in comics and even in painting. An example of this can be seen in the painting known as Las Meninas by Diego Velázquez, where we can see him painting the kings Philip IV and Mariana of Austria. However, the painting focuses on Diego and those around him, while the royal couple can only be seen through this mirror. In this way, Diego Velázquez seems to make us, the viewers, part of his work, as if we were in the place of the royal couple in the painting. There are many ways to break the fourth wall, and there are different effects that are achieved with it. But let's go a step further. What about the fifth wall? Well, it turns out that this concept does exist, and it turns out that Deadpool also breaks it. It is said that someone breaks the fifth wall when an actor or actress refers to their previous works. It can be something very obvious, like when Deadpool refers to being played by Ryan Reynolds or makes jokes about how bad the Green Lantern movie was. But we can also find it in a more subtle way in other films like Flushed Away, where the character of Roddy, whose voice is played by Hugh Jackman, shows a classic Wolverine outfit, or the inscription on this fake tomb of Nick Fury in the movie Captain America and the Winter Soldier, which refers to a phrase that the same actor Samuel L. Jackson says in the Pulp Fiction movie. However, I have not found where this term comes from or who coined it. Rather, I have seen that it is used a lot in internet blogs, so it gives me the impression that it is a term that is used for a very specific type of wall breaking or meta-reference, but it is still the same thing. Even so, the existence of this term tells us that breaking the fourth wall can be used in many ways and for different purposes. It is true that we usually see it being used as a comic resource, but over the years, different authors and artists have managed to present very interesting works in which they play with different planes of reality and how we perceive this line that separates reality from fiction. From meta-movies where we play the role of a fictitious audience of a fictitious program, to paintings that place us in a position of royalty. Don't go yet! If you like this video, I recommend these other video essays about cinema that you might also like. That's all for today. I am Gu, and keep looking beyond the obvious.